A very good evening to all our residents in East Coast. Welcome for joining us in our first East Coast e-Rally webinar. This session is streamed live on Facebook, and we would also like to share with you that over 200 participants have signed up in our Zoom session this evening. This is our first of 3 sessions organized by East Coast GRC for our voters to know more about what we have plans for you and how we can continue to engage and serve you better. With me this evening, of course, my fellow PAP teammates, and let me introduce them to you. We are first our Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Heng Swee Keat. We also have Jessica Tan. We have Cheryl Chan, Tan Kiat Hao, and of course myself, Maliki Osman. Tonight's topic, better home for East Coast. It's a very interesting topic because I'm sure many of you would think that, oh, we're going to talk about how we're going to improve the environment, the physical infrastructure. We will do that, but that's more for the subsequent sessions. Today, we're going to look at the emotive aspect of home. Some have said that home is made up of 2 words, hope and memories. But I think we're going to expand that to look at home in relation to how much we care, we love for those around us. At the same time, how much we feel cared for and loved by others. So what we'll do is today I'm going to invite our East Coast GRC candidates to share their perspective on several aspects of home. What are these? You know, in our work with you, we've been going down the ground, we've been talking to you, even during the COVID situation, circuit breaker, we have never stopped engaging you. We have spoken to you on webinars like this, and we found out your concerns, your worries, and your worry is really related to the economy, the jobs, businesses are concerned about whether you can open up again. And all this is because you want to be a good member in your home to give them the comfort of life that you want to give them. So the COVID pandemic is giving us a lot of challenges, but we want to do our part and see what we can do. For me, as Mayor of Southeast District, I always look at how best we can help our less fortunate, how best we can help our vulnerable. There's many things that we have done. Recently, in response to the COVID situation, we launched our voucher schemes for those who are lower income group, but also to help our local businesses, our merchants, our hawker centers, because they also told us that during the circuit breaker, for example, they face difficulties, they face challenges, people are not coming to them. So we want to help both our local income group as well as the merchants. We also help children from rental flats with vouchers for their meals when they were doing homeschooling. So much that we can talk about. What more can we do for residents who need help in terms of their jobs? Different segments. Everyone in the community, everyone in the home have got different concerns and challenges. We want to spend tonight talking about what are these challenges that we know of and how we can help you, help everyone in East Coast. Because in East Coast, our key message to you is together we care at East Coast. I'm going to start off by inviting one of our colleagues, the youngest and the new kid on the block, Kiat Hao. Now, Kiat Hao has lots of experiences. He spent quite a bit of time as the director of the Pioneer Generation Office. And that's why we started the Pioneer Generation Ambassador Program. And he has lots of experience. I'm going to invite him to share his perspective about what it means for us to develop a home for our seniors. Kiat Hao, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Maliki, for the very kind introduction. Firstly, a very warm welcome and evening to our residents and friends who's watching right now. As a new kid on the block, certainly much to learn. And over the last few days, I've been walking to meet various residents at Kampong Chai Chee, speaking to them. And I'd like to thank all of you for warmly welcoming me to East Coast, warmly welcoming me to your homes. Really feel like home to me. I have a chance to speak to many of our seniors especially, and they shared with me their hopes, their worries, and more importantly, the stories of East Coast and Kampong Chai Chee. The theme for tonight is a home for East Coast, a better home for East Coast. To me, a home is where the heart is. Home is where we make connections with our friends and families. home is where you want to come home after a long day at work. I want to come home even after spending some time outside Singapore. And I feel that sense of home when I visit many of our seniors in Kampong Chai Chee and East Coast. In fact, a couple of days ago, I met an elderly gentleman. I was very impressed with him. He looked fairly young, fairly senior, about 60 or 70, I thought in my mind. But when I asked him, Mr. Po, how old are you? He told me, I'm 93 years old this year. I was very, very surprised. I said, if I could look like you when I'm 70, I'd be very blessed. We had a very nice conversation. He shared with me the story of Kampong Chai Chee, where I visited him, how he looked like 50 years ago, 40 years ago. And he really shared with me that he really appreciated the build-up of Bedok and East Coast over the years, especially where he stayed near Kampong Chai Chee. There's Heartbeat at Bedok. There are many amenities and many programs that we have put in place by the East Coast GRC team over the years, helping seniors keep fit, active, and connected with the community, especially their friends. However, during this period, because of COVID-19 and some of the restrictions, our seniors are a bit more vulnerable to the virus. And we said that you should stay at home more often. And they said, we understand, but what they really miss was going down to the coffee shop, speak to their friends, la coffee, drink coffee, and more importantly, stay active with their friends. They said, I miss my Qigong session. I miss my Zumba session at Heartbeat at Bedok. I miss talking to my friends. And that's where I said, you can try learning some digital tools. For example, WhatsApp, YouTube, or Zoom, where you can still meet your friends. You can la copy at home and speak to them over the video calls. And they said, what's Zoom? What is that? Well, I think there's a Chinese saying, 活到老，学到老. And some of our seniors said, I want to learn. And that is why at Heartbeat, we recently launched a program, the SG Digital Office. We had a group of digital ambassadors who are now based in Heartbeat at Bedok to share with us and our seniors the various skills how to learn digital technology. Just launched a few days ago. And when I walked past sometime last week, I noticed that many seniors were being patiently guided by digital ambassadors on how to use these basic digital skills in their daily lives. So for friends and families, if you know anyone who want to pick up digital skills to connect your loved ones and family and friends, even during this period, please visit Heartbeat at Bedok, where you can meet some of our patient digital ambassadors to pick up some of these digital skills. But more importantly, we care for you at East Coast. We will roll out this program to all divisions in East Coast in the coming weeks and months. So this is what home is to me, caring for everyone in our community, old, young, seniors, vulnerable people. They're all part of our family and we care for them.
Thank you, Kat Howard. Certainly, home is where we do not want people to feel alienated. And the one thing for seniors, given the fact that we're moving into technology, is never to make them feel alienated. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today. I also want to remind our audience that because this is a Zoom session, but really with about 200 participants, it's going to be quite difficult for us to invite you online to ask your questions. So what you can do actually is to key in your questions or comments on our chat room. Many of you are quite familiar with Zoom. Please put up your comments in the chat room, and later on I will invite our fellow candidates from East Coast GRC to respond to some of your queries. I'm going to invite Jess on what she thinks of how our businessmen, our middle-aged workers feel at this current stage, and how they feel at home, and how do we help them, making them feel that East Coast is the home for them. Jess, please.
Very good evening to all residents of East Coast as well as friends of East Coast. One of the areas that I often speak about in Parliament is about ensuring that there are good jobs for Singaporeans. Jobs matter. In many of my engagements with residents, many of you have shared with me how important finding employment and having a job is to you. In this difficult situation, with the current economic situation, many of you are also anxious about not just retaining your jobs, but anxious about being able to have good jobs so that you can sustain and support your families. And at the same time, In fact, yesterday in one of my home visits, one of our residents said to me, he was looking for a job and he's been out of work for some time. And he said, I'm trying to pick up skills. I'm attending training so that I can keep my mind active. So sharing about jobs matter. Jobs matter to our residents because it also gives them a sense of purpose. But of course, what's also important is being able to support and sustain your families. Businesses too are facing challenges because of just the changes that are coming both with technology and more recently with what's happening in COVID. What we've seen in a short span of time, in a few months, we have seen how businesses and work has been disrupted and has transformed. So we need to also support our businesses to be able to stay relevant, to be able to adapt to the changes. And why is that so important to our residents? And why is there a need to focus on that? Because businesses, especially the SMEs, provide employment. They provide jobs for our people. And the SMEs in Singapore provide 70% of all the jobs that our Singaporeans and our residents need. So what's important in East Coast is to really help our residents with good jobs and to help our businesses stay relevant so that there will be good jobs for you. So what do we do in East Coast? What we focused on is helping our SMEs transform through the various programs like the Go Digital program and enabling them to be able to stay relevant. At the same time, for our residents, we've been focusing on jobs and employability and learning and training through job fairs, webinars, and the various programs that will allow them to be able to stay relevant. But more importantly, now, because of the current economic situation, what we have focused on is also specific targeted programs to help our residents connect to the jobs. That's one area that I feel is very important. And we now have a program called the Getting Employed Matters, or GEMS, at East Coast GRC. And with the GEMS at East Coast GRC, we're working with a network of employers and a nonprofit organization to look at connecting our residents to the jobs. And by doing that, we hope that it would allow our residents to then apply themselves. And here, for a start, we have about 200 jobs that are already in the network, and we are focusing on connecting our residents. So in East Coast, we look forward to continuing this focus on helping you with jobs and employability because we care about your future.
Thank you very much, Jess. So we've heard about what we can do for our middle income workers. We can help the businesses. I'm going to now invite Cheryl, our other young member in our team. We have many young members in our team to share. And she's been talking a lot to young people, young people who have aspirations and they also want to make a good home in East Coast and how we can work together with them. Cheryl?
Thank you, Dr. Maliki. Hello, good evening to all our East Coast residents and friends. I'm actually very happy that in the last few years, I've had the opportunity to work many ground-up initiatives with the youth in East Coast. And one of the things that really they reminded me is what started out as just very casual chats and friendships amongst us actually blossomed into initiatives that help people who lived in our neighborhood, in our community. The youth actually has a lot of aspirations. They also have dreams, but actually what they really wanted was to be able to pay it forward. And therefore, in the initiatives that we did, actually there were two major aspects that I focused on. First was to create opportunities for them to be able to pay it forward within our own community. And second, to enhance their career prospects as well as their personal development. I think these are very important for the young adults because everyone would wish to have that feeling of self-fulfillment and to be able to help others. And this is important because we have a lot of seniors. We also do have vulnerables that lives amongst us. Some of the very notable initiatives that they have really done. I'll just name a few because there's quite a number of them. First of it is actually the digital clinics. We've really had a few years of digital clinics that we brought to our seniors. And it's all this one-to-one coaching sessions. But what the youth actually did is they took their weekends to come and train these seniors one-on-one so that they understand how exactly to move into the digital space. It was never easy, as some of them told me, because first, there might be language barrier. Some speak dialect, some speak Mandarin, but they all try different efforts and partner other individuals to be able to bring this forward. The other one is around the Befrienders program. The Befrienders program actually, the young adults go and visit all the vulnerable seniors who lived within our community, or even the individuals who do not have family support. And this has actually become important because during the period when we have the circuit breaker or when there are other emergencies, these young adults and also our community partners are the first one to reach out to the vulnerables within us. So I would say this is all very good efforts from them. But they have continued to roll on other things because they said we must always look, because of the aspirations of our young adults, we have to see how we can help them if they're supposed to graduate from school, they want to look for mentors, how do we actually help them onward? So they started this employment and networking sharing sessions. That has gone quite well. We've just had a recent webinar together with Mr. Edward Chia, that's from the co-founder of the Timber Group, and also the GM from Lien from the GoJet Singapore, who's the GM. So I think all these different platforms and opportunities give them a good diversity and continue engaging other people where they feel they can move towards in terms of their lives. I hope we can do a lot more of this so that we can actually not just help our young adults in terms of aspiration, but continue to give back to the community because there's a lot more that is required amongst us. So I look forward to all this partnership, and if you have any ideas, feel free to write them to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Now I would like to invite DPM Heng to share on his thoughts about home, and particularly he's got so much experience in dealing with engaging the international community, as well as look at the national level and what it means for us in East Coast, creating a home here for all of us. DPM, please.
Well, thank you, Maliki. Now, Maliki started, first of all, let me thank all of you for joining us for this session. Maliki started off by saying that home is about hope and memories, and I fully agree with that. Now, and then we spoke about what is this hope. I think a very important part of this hope is that we're able to master the new skills, whether it's the digital skills or new knowledge, and for us to be able to do better on our jobs. Because having a job is an important way for us to fulfill our hopes and dreams. So Jessica's touched at length about our jobs. And I think many of you will be aware that we put out 4 budgets in 100 days and spending almost $100 billion in order to make sure that in this very severe crisis period, we're able to support our businesses and support our workers so that our workers can keep their jobs. So in the last few days, I've been walking around the hawker centers and in the shops. Very happy to see that many of the residents not only told me that they are continuing to work, many of our hawkers said, well, they are glad that they are able to open after this circuit breaker period, and that the 5 months of rental rebates that they are getting, where they don't have to pay rent, has been most helpful for them. So I'm glad to see that this is part of that effort. Now, when we talk about home and what is the East Coast plan, I would say that there are several elements to it. The first element is really about keeping our people safe. And that is where we are looking at all the various means. Very happy to see how the Safe Distancing Ambassador and how have been working hard, and that our people have been very, very disciplined. So keeping to the time and so on. And at the same time, we'll look at how we can do the digital means and how we can improve on this. The second aspect of it is really about our jobs and how we can create an even more vibrant environment in the East Coast, and how our children in our schools and our junior colleges, and as well as our ITEs and the universities can continue to do well. So you know that we have the SG United Jobs and Skills Package for us to help us with this. And we want to make sure that we can take care of everyone when they have a need. And of course, the other element of it is, Maliki said, well, we'll also have a session on the fiscal infrastructure. But the fiscal infrastructure is just a platform for us to do things together. And when the COVID situation is better, we will have many more activities. And as part of that, we'll need to look at how we can bring our whole community together to build this care environment. So the point about we care is a very important concept. That we care at East Coast, we should try and bring all our people together so that we can care for one another and do something for one another. So I very much like to discuss this even further on how we can build a community of care. And as you have heard from, I think you all have been working very well together with Maliki, Jessica, and Cheryl, as well as before that, the Ishan and Suise, on many programs for which the community comes together to help one another, to support one another. Let us build on this spirit. And what connects us in the end is this sense of solidarity, the sense of caring for one another. So I look forward to hearing from you and looking at how we can do this even better.
Thank you very much, DPM. I see quite a number of questions also coming from the the Facebook page. There was a question earlier which I saw. I think maybe Cheryl can share a little bit. The question is really, what are our plans to help low-income families in East Coast GRC? I'm very sure it's not just what plans we have, but what we have been doing and what more we can do. I think given the current circumstances, I can share a little bit more about later on, but what we do at the CDC also to help our residents here. Cheryl?
Yes, so maybe let me touch on what we've done locally in Fengshan in the last few years. So for example, to start off, to help the lower income group, we know that their weekly marketing can be quite an expensive cost for some of them. So in fact, we've got this vegetable distribution program that happens every week on Saturday. Of course, we stopped during the circuit breaker, but what we wanted to do was to enable them, especially those families, not to only have processed or packaged food, but to actually have fresh food that is donated by the Pasir Panjang wholesalers themselves. So I think it's this kind of community spirit, which is what we're trying to build. And apart from that, we always partner our schools around in East Coast. The students have on a regular basis, different schools throughout the year come on board to help clean up the homes of some of our elderly or those who's actually ill and unable to manage on their own. These are the kind of thoughtful things that they do. But actually what I thought was useful was because they managed to build this intergenerational bonds between the seniors, the lower income, as well as the students and the young residents. So I think we look forward to having a lot more other programs if we can partner each other in the community.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I just want to add a little bit on, I've been a mayor in the Southeast District for the last almost 10 years. And I think one of the things that we do in Southeast is really looking after the well-being of the most vulnerable, the low-income citizens, the elderly who are living alone. On the low-income citizens, we continue to look at how we partner our corporates also, not just government helping. Government has been helping with financial assistance. We've been helping with transport allowances. We've been helping children with their school pocket money as well as their school necessities. And as far as other help is concerned, we also created new opportunities when we had children who are not able to get their milk powder, for example. We secure sponsorship from our corporates. And I think what's useful to look at the way we create this social compact with our citizens is also to engage our corporate partners to make sure that in Singapore, and particularly in East Coast and Southeast, we continue to reach out so that we can help each other create a more a strong and cohesive community that we can support one another. I'm going to also then ask DPM to share about the packages that have been put in place in the last 4 budgets. Normally in every budget, we remember DPM will always think about the less fortunate, how much is given. But given the COVID situation, I think there's a lot more that DPM has thought about this, and maybe he can share and elaborate more on what has been given to Singaporeans.
Well, thank you, Maliki. So the budget package covers Singaporeans, all Singaporeans in all parts of Singapore. And just now you heard from Cheryl and Maliki what the East Coast itself is doing. Now let me say that nationwide, we have first the temporary relief fund, because we need time to get this package out. But this was the most immediate support for temporary relief fund for $500. We have a solidarity payment for everyone of $600, and more will be coming. But for the lower income group, we have some special support in the form of, so for seniors, we have $100 extra support. We have the GST U Save that is between twice what we normally provide for USAVE, and in fact, 2.5 times for those who need it more. At the same time, we have rebates for the SNCC charges between 1.5 to 3.5 months. But for the lower income workers, we have the WIS special payment, as well as the a range of grocery vouchers, $100 for those in the 3-room and 2-room. And the CDC itself, I went around looking at the CDC voucher scheme, and that many of the storeholders have been using that, because we are supporting not just our low-income families, but also our hawkers and our neighborhood shops. So there's a whole range of different support, and I hope that this has been useful and that we are able to reach out effectively.
Thank you, DPM. Kat Howe, there is a question about digital plans for digital seniors. Let me just get it here. Yeah, something about GLCs and Go Digital. I mean, you were in IMDA recently. Maybe it's still fresh in your minds what the plans were, you know. It says here is by Ginny Chin. Government agencies and GLCs should lead by example to Go Digital initiative. Many are still using checks for payment, oftentimes as tactics to delay payments to SMEs. How can the effective government drive this agenda to be more effective? I think it's not intention, but maybe it's a processes, but maybe you can share a little bit more about some of these perspectives so that some of these things can be clarified.
Thank you for the question. The way I think about digital is that, you know, it's like technology. When I went to school, that was many years ago, we were still talking about IT. Of course, I graduated when it was a dot-com bust. Then after that, we will say, does IT matter? But during this COVID-19 period, I think it has accelerated a lot of the digitalization that we see today. And even now today, we are having an e-rally webinar, able to connect with all of you, although you're not physically in this location. It shows how much technology is part of our lives. Technology certainly is not an end, it's a means to an end. It's ability for us to connect better with our loved ones, able to be more productive, able to do things much more easily, creating more conveniences in our daily lives. To me, that's what digital is about. And you talk about people taking steps to adopt technology. I think that's an important step. And of course, sometimes the first step is the most difficult. And what we are trying to do in the community is to help people to take the first step, right? After taking a first step, usually the second step and the third step is much easier. For example, we started the Hawkers Go Digital initiative, where we help all hawkers to go towards more e-payment. E-payment is an additional venue for people to pay their storeholders in addition to cash. And I'm very happy to see that many storeholders embrace this initiative. For example, I met with this this uncle who runs a coffee drink store at Block 216 Market in Bedok. He was telling me with the e-payment, the SGQR e-payment is much more convenient for him. In the past, people buy a cup of coffee, maybe say $1, $1.10, and the customer gives me a $50 note. It's very hard to actually find change in his register. So he opened up a register and showed me, wow, full of coins. You know, he said, I don't know how much coins is there in my cash register. And every week or every month, he takes the coins, he goes to the bank to deposit, and the bank charges him a surcharge. So say if you can pay me by digital immediately to my bank account, actually it's much more convenient for him. And some customers I've seen find it much convenient as well. Sometimes they don't want to use cash, and sometimes it's much convenient when actually small change, you don't bring a wallet along. So such steps like this helps everyone in the community, hawkers and seniors, take the first step. And to me, that's the most important point. And for residents in East Coast and Bedok, please support our hawkers as they do this journey. They are taking a very brave move out of their comfort zone, and I hope that you can support them as well.
Hi, thank you so much, Kat Howe. There's a question in Facebook, in Jessica's Facebook. Can you bring on the question again? Give us a minute. Yeah. So by Catherine, who asked this, Jessica, you said that government is ensuring quality jobs for Singaporeans, but I find many of the jobs in the job portal not quality jobs. What can be done? Jess.
Hi, Catherine. you rightly pointed out the importance of having and connecting to the jobs. So I will ask you to go to the My Careers Future.sg site, which is the Workforce Singapore site. And where you in there, you will find that there are about 28,000 jobs that are listed, and it's a whole range of jobs, and some of them are very good quality jobs. They range from different industries as well. So take a look at that. But at the same time, this is an area, because of the current economic situation, this is an area that's being worked on as well. So with there will be 100,000 jobs there's some pre-hiring by the government, as well as some private sector companies are also looking at putting out jobs, and that's going to be about 40,000 of those. At the same time, there will be traineeships that will allow people to get connected back into the industry. It's not like a full-time job yet, because that's why it's called a traineeship, but it will allow for people to be able to get in touch and involved in the industry, to pick up skills, pick up experience in a new job, a new area, and for companies to also assess and get a feel of those individuals. So in that sense, that these are the kinds of jobs that are available. And I shared earlier the GEMS at East Coast GRC, which is the program we're looking at to connecting people to jobs. So Catherine, if you do need some help, come to GEMS at East Coast GRC, either at Heartbeat at Bedok or any of our CCs, and we'll be able to work further with you. And for the mid-career workers, I will say to you, this is a challenging time for you. So if you do need help as well, do connect with us.
Let me share and elaborate a little bit on Jessica's point about GEM at East Coast. What is it all about? You see, we know, and somebody was commenting here, Chun Fai Lee says, we all know that jobs is a problem. Why do you keep talking about jobs? Because we know it's a problem. That's why we're talking about it, because we know it is in the hearts of many Singaporeans. And so what are we doing? Workforce Singapore has decided to set up satellite centers to make it more accessible for Singaporeans to look for jobs. And in East Coast, it is right smack in Heartbeat at Bedok. But having it there is, I think, good. But some of our residents in Simei, in Siglap, may still find it difficult to go all the way there, or they may want something that's closer and accessible to them. So we decided to develop GEM. GEM means Getting Employed Matters, because we know to them, getting employed matters. They want to get employed, and we want to make it easy for them. So therefore, we worked with VWO Tau One Limited, who has a good network of employers, and they have created this portal where they're going to bring jobs to this network of employers. And today they have about 200 jobs available, a mixture of blue-collar jobs, rank and file jobs, some PMET's jobs. They're going to expand more, and we hope they can do that. And we're going to give this holistic care. So any one of our GRC residents who are looking for a job, they can do two things. One, they can head to any one of our CCs, and we have staff who's available to help them, guide them, and connect them with Tau Limited to look at where are the jobs that's available by the employers who've decided to offer them jobs. Now, if some of these jobs are not suitable, then of course we'll make the referral to WSG, Workforce Singapore's satellite office over at the Heartbeat at Bedok. Then at the same time, we know when someone is looking for jobs, his issues are not just jobs, he has other needs, and we will continue to look at their holistic needs to make sure that we help them holistically. So this really, it is not just because we want to sound like a broken record, but it's because we have been hearing this so much on the ground, and we understand the concerns of Singaporeans out there. I have a question, DPM, if you can take this question by Chun Fai Lee. I think it's she says that compared to other countries, it seems like SG government is not doing enough to protect PMET, MNC. MNC can let go, not doing enough to protect PMET. MNC can let go easily. In other countries, surveillance package will be so high, not like here. I think just asking the question, are we doing enough to help PMETs?
Well, thank you for the question. I think first we have to look at the jobs in a rather holistic way. That what we need to do is not just to protect jobs, but also to create good jobs to match good jobs. So if you look at, for instance, first protecting jobs, we have a fair consideration framework to make sure that our employees are treated well. We have NTUC that will look after some of these issues, as well as the Ministry of Manpower. Now, second, what is even more important is that we must continue to create good jobs. Our workers now will have to compete with workers all over the world. And what will give us an edge? What will give us an edge is that our workers have the special skills to be able to do better than other workers. How are we doing it? We're doing it by, as Jessica was pointing out earlier, by combining both the company upgrading with the upgrading of the skills of our workers. And that has to go hand in hand. And of course, so we create the jobs, and then we got to do proper matching. And that's where we spoke about the GEMS program, where we can match the job vacancies with the skills level. But beyond that, in order to help our workers learn more skills, we are having this Skills Future credit and Skills Future subsidies for a very wide range of courses. And these courses are matched to the new growth areas. And I've set up an Emerging Stronger task force. The main objective is to look at new sectors that can grow to create even better jobs for our people. And the last thing I'll say is that we are even going further downstream. I was education minister before, and one of the things that we want to do is that our children are going to face even more intense competition in years ahead. And that's the reason why we are revamping our education system. And in the ITE, polytechnics and universities, we have a stronger element of applied learning and a whole range of earn and learn program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a question from the Facebook Live. Can we turn it back on, please? That asked Cheryl specifically on seniors. What more we can do to help seniors in East Coast GRC? Cheryl.
Yes, so I think the question was from Leslie Neo. It was with regards to, there's a lot of seniors amongst us and some of the seniors are still working. I think that is a very valid question. I have a lot of seniors in Fengshan before, and of course in East Coast because it's a mature estate. I think first and foremost, we need to understand what the seniors, their backgrounds are from. Not everybody would like to work when they come to old age. Some would like to enjoy their retirement, spend time with their grandchildren, minding their grandchildren. There are others who actually wants to take the opportunities to network, make friends, some others to learn new skills. I think we need to have the different opportunities and platform for them to be able to enjoy their golden years. But for those seniors who are actually working, what more can we do for them? I think there's a few aspects. First of all, we need to work closely with the employers, because unless the employers are willing to redesign their jobs to have micro jobs that's available for the seniors, some of them are only able to work certain hours of the day or to work part-time. So we need to make that available first. And that's the reason why we try to work this with WSG and also with the Taiwan initiative, which is the GEMS that Jessica talked about earlier. But apart from that, I think the other one is also those who's willing to train the seniors, because in terms of staying relevant, I think they have a lot of deep expertise and knowledge because of their years of experience, but sometimes it's to be relevant to the current job. So I think everyone needs to play that role in it. If we have the opportunity, we will actually take this forward to help out many of our seniors who's living amongst us.
All right. Now I want to go to Kiat Hao. I'm going to give opportunities for all my colleagues to be able to respond to as many questions as possible. And so we are trying to keep our response as sharp and succinct so that we can connect with you as much as possible. Kiat Hao, you are one of our new candidates. You've started walking the ground in Bedok area, and you must have started talking to Singaporeans. What have you heard from them? And I think it's in relation to a question raised by Punit Oza, who says that I'm a resident in East Coast and I am very happy to see the continued commitment by PAP and its candidates. Home for me is the comfort of knowing that I can live my life peacefully and help others with their lives as much as possible. This makes me feel at home. So he says, my question is, what programs is government planning to help build on this feeling of positivity and sharing within, which has been heightened by COVID-19? I feel that this feeling will be lost when COVID-19 challenges recede. I suppose we can talk about what the government plans to do, which we have done quite a bit during the whole last 6 months, but also within the community. How can we develop this positivity in the East Coast community? that we can actually develop a good sense of what home means for all of us. Get how?
Thanks, Dr. Maliki. Thanks for the question. Indeed, I've been over the last couple of weeks, especially last few days, been walking around, speaking to our residents, visiting them in their homes. But I've been doing so for a number of years when I was at the Pioneer Generation office. In fact, I was every day visiting pioneers in their homes and very inspired by the stories. So visiting our residents is something very familiar to me, and it energizes me speaking to people. On the question about what home is and how to build a caring community, it's something that touches my heart. I spoke to a number of residents especially the last few days, and I asked them what touched them the most during this period. Of course, I think they were very appreciative of firstly, as what DPM has said, keeping us all safe. Safe in the community, safe in Singapore, our families safe from COVID-19. They're very appreciative of various schemes from the budget as well in the local community to support them. But most importantly, what touched them was their neighbors. Neighbors who came by to say hi to them, making sure they have the necessary daily, for example, groceries if they can't go out, just coming by to say hi and how things are. I think for me, building a caring community at East Coast is about building the networks, relationship, and the neighborliness that really makes it home. So it's something that I care about and I hope to champion.
All right. So while we're talking about community, there's another question by Ling Tan from our Facebook page that asks, are there plans for sustainably living in East Coast GRC? More like whether we can have more community gardens, recycling initiatives. Cheryl?
Certainly, we have a lot of all this. In fact, I wanted to refer link to this East Coast GRC manifesto. In there, actually, we talk about the number of community gardens that exist in East Coast today. There's 33 of them. We also have 36 Blue SG points, which is your electric vehicles. And there's many more other programs that we have, including recycling. I would encourage a lot of you, because we do have Go Green efforts with our young adults now. There's a lot more that you can do. So for example, in Fengshan itself, we have actually stopped using the plastic bottles. We use all these refillable water points, and it had been a great success. Although initially some of the young adults were a bit worried if the seniors could catch up with it, but that's not a problem. So I encourage you, if you have green ideas, do share with us so that we can implement more of it on the ground.
Thank you, Cheryl. Of course, I want to add a little bit more. As Mayor of Southeast District, we have been promoting green efforts. We've been doing so much. And, I want to go back to this idea about the role of CDC when we engage corporates. DPM has always told us that as we build SG together, it's really more about bringing different sectors together. So in our green efforts, for example, we have been organizing the e-waste recycling program for many years. And so we engage Panasonic, for example. So we engage Panasonic, and what do? We encourage people to recycle their e-waste. Panasonic will take the e-waste, and what they do is they will return us one energy-saving light bulb for every e-waste item. And this energy-saving light bulb is then brought to low-income households so that we can also then reduce their electricity usage. Because some of these energy-saving light bulb can be a little bit more costly. So rather than they having to buy, it is donated, contributed by Panasonic, and subsequently we actually give it to them. We also have got programs like food waste to prevent food waste, right? So therefore, for example, some of our RC centers run our bakery, these are still very good bread, and they collect it, and then they pack it and they recycle, and then they give it to our low-income families. Okay. I'm going to then, Jess, we've been talking quite a bit of the middle age, and they're looking and concerned about their jobs. So you can share a little bit more, Jess, what you've heard on the ground so far, and what can we do more for them?
Well, for many of our middle-aged workers, especially if they've lost their jobs, they're finding it quite challenging. It does take some time for them to find new jobs. And for those in the jobs, some of them have also expressed to us their concerns about staying relevant, because while they are working hard on their current jobs, the jobs themselves are changing. So there's focus on a few things. One is, I talked a little bit earlier about traineeships. So specifically for the middle age workers, there will be traineeship programs there's about 4,000 traineeships that will be available, working with organizations to provide these opportunities for middle-aged workers to get into these traineeships, to get into new roles, for them to be able to bring their experience into the roles, and they may not be a complete fit to it, and being able to then learn and apply themselves. At the same time, it also allows the employers who may not have may not be in the have the ability at this point because of economic challenges to hire the full-time job, and that's why the traineeship is there, and the government will fund some of the cost of that traineeship. So it's a win-win for both sides. So these are some of the measures that will help our middle-aged workers. But there's also a need for employers to be open to looking at how they can work with the middle-aged workers as well. So these are areas that we're also looking at to say, how can we also work more closely with employers besides just the traineeships?
Thank you very much, Jess. We have a question from our Facebook Live by Edmund Tan to DPM Heng. Would the government look into providing mentorship and capital setup fundings for those interested in urban farming to boost our local supply by 2030, especially for those without much funds? DPM.
Well, I mean, it looks like you and the members of the East Coast community are very green. I'm very happy to hear that. Now, earlier on, Cheryl spoke about what is being done in terms of the community gardens. So you have we have 33 community gardens. And in fact, on the next page, we have the Coastal Adventure Corridor, as well as the Bodok Nature Way. So I hope that everyone take a closer look at this. Now, Minister Masagos has announced the 30 by 30 plan, which is to produce 30% of our food intake by the year 2030. So we do indeed want to encourage our community to grow our own food. So what are some of the things we can do? Well, with community gardens, I was discussing with members of the national parks that besides growing something that just looks nice, can you grow something that is edible? And they say yes. So if there are interest in doing this, we can certainly do that. That will be at a community level. But beyond that, we can do it at an even bigger scale to help those of you who are entrepreneurial, who wants to try this, to go ahead and learn this. So if you're interested, let's talk about it later when we gather together again.
Thank you very much, DPM. I think there's also a lot of interest on SMEs, you know, and East Coast is really a place that houses quite a number of SMEs. So I'm going to ask DPM to also respond to a question by Jeannie Chin, which says that if SME is the backbone of the economy that create 7 out of 10 employment, what are the financial assistance available to small SME business owners, especially in our current economic situation? SME business owners, except sole proprietor, do not qualify for SIRS. They need to give up their own income to sustain the business and livelihood of employees. I think challenges that SMEs are facing today. DPM.
Well, I fully understand. In fact, SMEs are under great stress. And as you mentioned, that we actually have many SMEs. But at the same time, you know, the term SME covers a very wide range of companies. SMEs are defined as companies which are below $100 million of revenue. But the vast majority of them are actually what we call micro enterprises, where their turnover is below $1 million. And then you have a range that's between $1 to $10 million and then 10 to 100 million. But between an SME that is below 1 million and one that is 95 million, it is a very big difference. How are we supporting our SMEs, particularly during this period? Actually, the biggest support for our SMEs is in the job support package. Now, a lot of people thought, well, are we just supporting the companies? No, we are actually supporting the workers so that the SMEs can stay viable, can stay afloat, and that they can continue to hire and retain their workers. So that's the most important part. There's also a set of package on rental relief. So the tenants take 2 months, the landlord take 2 months, and the government provides 2 months of rental payment. So we hope that in that way, the SMEs can tide over this difficult period. So I was very cheered when I was walking around the shops and the small stores and the hawkers that the reopening of the business have allowed them to start. Because as you quite correctly pointed out, even if 75% job support, if I have zero revenue, it's very, very painful. So I'm glad that we are able to reopen many of these activities. But the key thing for us to resume many of this and to support our SME is that every one of us must do our part, keep Singapore safe, keep our lives safe, so that we can continue to open gradually. And in that way, many more businesses can come back and businesses can resume. So as we open, I hope that each and every one of you do your part. I encourage everyone to practice good hygienes, wear the mask, and practice safe distancing.
Thank you, DPM. There's been a lot of questions on infrastructure, although we say that we're going to discuss infrastructure in our subsequent sessions. Of course, everybody must be excited about what more that we can do for them in terms of infrastructure. I'm just going to ask Jess to just give an overview first, then we can talk a bit more about it in another session. Jess, the question by Sir Wai Kang, would you be able to know what are the proposed 5-year master plan for East Coast GRC?
I think Win Chu as well asked, as well as Wai Kang, about the infrastructure plans. So basically, the 3 pillars we look at when we look at both our current plans as well as our future plans. One is, how do we help to ensure connectivity around for our residents as they get around both the town as well as for their transportation and movements around the area. So that's one of the areas we focus on. And the second one is around rejuvenating our homes, ensuring that our environment is such that our homes continue to be maintained and maintained well. So there's various programs around that. And the final one, which is an important one for us, is about inclusivity. Inclusivity in terms of ensuring that it is a home that everyone can find easy and comfortable to live in, safe as well as accessible. So these are the 3 pillars, and our 5-year plan. If you look into our manifesto, you will be able to see that here as well. And these are the various things. So I'll take too long to go through them. And you will also see some of the plans shared further. And we continue to encourage our residents to be able to use that.
Thank you very much, Jess. Kiat Hao, there is a question on Merdeka generation's concerns. You know, we've been working with you've been working on the pioneer generations, particularly Merdeka generation. It's from Pamela Tilaka, who says that need to ask more to be done and fair help for Merdeka generation concerns. Some of us are doing small business individually to support ourselves, but on these present times and in the digital age, we are seeking flexi portion of help with and without business feel will be great help. Meaning that I suppose, how do they go digital? This Merdeka generation who are doing businesses, perhaps home businesses. What can you say a bit more about our plans on go digital for our seniors?
Thanks, and firstly, great respect to members of our pioneer generation and Merdeka generation. The hard work of your generation have built the Singapore we have today. For many businesses, whether small businesses or even slightly bigger, medium-sized SMEs, going digital is really an important investment. In Chinese, I always say this is an investment for today, for tomorrow's business. And especially during this COVID-19, businesses that have adapted and adopted technology can stay more productive, actually can continue selling to and serving the customers even during this restrictions during this period. There are actually many resources that we put in place by many government agencies such as IMDA and ESG. As a first port of call, please go to their websites, take a look. And for individuals who are running the micro enterprises, actually there are many resources as well at the CCs, and can visit our digital ambassadors to actually get some help on where those websites are. So please go to look at those resources and certainly welcome you to actually make full use of all the programs that have been put in place.
Thank you very much, Jason. We're trying to respond to as many questions as we can. There's a question which I will respond. By Lin Yu, all of you have been talking about helping out lower and middle income families. May I ask if you have done anything of any plans for people who fall outside of these groups but have similarly felt the negative effects of COVID? The answer is yes, Lin. If I can ask you to give us your details, I will give you details to contact my Southeast CDC. In fact, we're working very closely with all the grassroots advisors to be able to reach out particularly to those who fall through the cracks. This is the role of the CDC, because what happened is that we did manage to get some donations during the COVID period, and because MOF has given us flexibility in providing co-funding to some of these corporates, and we have decided to co-fund the corporate and help some of these people because they are not able to get assistance from all the different schemes that's available, and it's really designated to this group of individuals. So Lynn, rest assured, if you do have cases of this nature, do get to any one of us. They will refer to me because I'm the mayor of the Southeast District, and I will make sure the person who needs help can continue to get help. Perhaps one more last question, Cheryl. One that I saw earlier that talks about how do we help, seniors. We see some old people still carrying cardboards. I'm sure you have seen some of this situation, and there's a lot of stories behind this. Our heart pains whenever we see such cases. So maybe you can elaborate more. What's your observation so far, Cheryl?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I have to say I'm very heartened that we have many kind individuals who actually look out for one another in the community. I do have residents who told me not only of some of the cardboard collectors, they also see some of the seniors who are sleeping at the corridor or even at some of the void deck spaces. I think the most important thing for us is first to reach out to them and understand what is the background to it. As we found out, some of the seniors who's actually staying at the void deck, they're not even Fengshan residents. The IC states some other parts of Singapore, but for one reason or the other, they felt the affinity and they want to come back to the area. So I think we should not jump to conclusion. It's more important that we reach out to them and see if we can handhold these individuals. But if they do have family situations that they are unable to, if they do not want to move into a shelter or back to their own homes, I think we need to see how exactly to help those who fall through the crack, because not every single cardboard collector is someone who actually needed that money, right? So we really have to base on each circumstances. And I know Ministry of the Social and Family Development has done quite an extensive studies to see those who are homeless and also those cardboard collectors. I hope we can reach out to them and understand their situation rather than to put a judgment ahead of it.
Thank you very much. Really, I think time is running out, but I do have one question that I would like to ask DPM to respond to. It is by Ko Wee Seong, and he says that my concern is not jobs, but employers who provide the jobs. Thanks for the financial transfusions, but what next? So for example, many retail and F&B cannot pay the same rent as before COVID. How can they reset their rentals if landlords are unreasonable? Similarly, those providing goods and services are stuck with pre-COVID prices, but many costs have escalated because of COVID safety measures. This lack of certainty is causing employers nightmares. Can you help?
Well, Wei Xiong, I think you asked a very, very important question, which is that post-COVID, how would the world look like? The honest answer is that nobody knows how exactly the world will look like. Why? Because we don't know, first, how long COVID will last, and second, after this, how will the world change? And one other major change that which I hope that all of you would be, would be aware, is that even before COVID hit, the global economy is already undergoing lots of changes for two major reasons. One is technology and innovation is accelerating changes faster and faster. You think about our neighborhood shops, it used to be that we are all quite protected because people will buy things from the neighborhood shops. But with e-commerce, it is now even affecting the way people buy fish. And a few months back, I was in a market in the Geylang Serai area. And what was very interesting was that the mother introduced me to her son, and he said, well, my son helped me to do up this program, and I'm selling fish by an online auction. And I said, are you doing better? He said, yes, definitely. And without this, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So indeed, we will have to think about how we can help all our businesses not only manage this COVID situation, but post-COVID, with this rapid pace of change, how do we help businesses become even more productive and to be able to reach out to even more customers? But on the other hand, if we're able to do that, it also means that we have a much bigger market than just our local market. Right? We can sell all over the world. And in fact, there was a little shop in Peninsula near my office, and they, again, their young son did a program for online sales of certain items and helped the mom to sell all these souvenirs, and the sales have boomed. And I mentioned this about 2 years back in one of my budget speeches. So you see, the helping us to cope with change is really the critical thing, and which is why it is very important for us that we make plans not just for the next few months, but for the years ahead. And in fact, I'm very cheered by the sort of questions that many of you have asked, whether it's about jobs, about renter, about how to help businesses, about how to be kinder, how to go digital. And we will have to work through these plans very carefully, and that to get everybody's wisdom and your inputs into this plan. And in that way, we can do it together. That is why, by the way, I started this Singapore Together movement. The Singapore Together movement is to bring together all the creative energies and ideas of our people. We focus on what are the common problems that all of us are facing, and how do we then solve these problems with our creativity, with our cooperation. And I would, one of the things which I learned greatly from your chat with you today is that we talk about hardware, but we also talk a lot about software, because we need the software to get things done. And even more importantly, we talk about hardware, H-E-A-R-T. And as Cheryl mentioned earlier on, having kind people who really cares about our neighbors, our friends, our families, will allow us to do more. And in fact, a big part of this We Care at Bedok is really about how we care for one another. And but let's come together to see how we can do this better. In our third session, we will be touching on this, and I hope that you continue to join us, where we will provide more details of how we can do this.
Thank you very much, DPM. Ladies and gentlemen, I will have to bring this session to a close, because our experience is that many of you have given us so much of your attention. We've tried our very best to respond to as many questions, but there are a lot of questions that are still going on and still coming in. But rest assured, we will respond to some of your questions in other platforms that we have the opportunity to. But for those of you who've been asking specific questions that relate to your experiences, for example, Kamarudin on SIRS, there's a question specifically, I think I will respond to it to you directly, that relates to parking situation in one of our private estates. There are also some issues about Changi Village where I'm responsible for too. Rest assured, I will respond to all those, because all those are under my responsibility. But for now, before I wrap up, I'm going to invite my fellow colleagues here to wrap up by sharing with us in 1 minute, what is the one thing that we would like to share with our residents and our voters in East Coast GRC. I'm going to start off with Kiat Hao.
Thank you, Dr. Maliki. For me, I'm a newcomer to East Coast. Hope to have a chance to get to know everyone better. And for me, a home at East Coast is one where we care for one another and do it together to build a caring, inclusive community.
Much, Kiat Hao, really sticking to the 1 minute that I gave you. And Cheryl, can I invite you, please?
Yes, so I think in East Coast, I believe in partnering our youth to do ground-up initiatives. We have many of them, as I said, especially to reach out to underprivileged families and children. If you have more ideas to it, and also around the Go Green efforts, do read our manifesto that's now uploaded on www.eastcoast.sg. You can find the full series in it. You can give us your ideas or even tell us more on what else we can do to partner you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Jess?
Okay, these are challenging times. There are maybe some immediate needs that you have, and we will support you. But more importantly, we're focusing on working together with you, because we found that when we work together, we understand your needs. That's when we are most effective in being able to support you, and also not just for now, but for the future as well. Thank you.
I'll use my 1 minute first before I invite DPM to have the last word. Why my 1 minute is to all our residents and voters in East Coast. The one thing that we've always been doing to you and with you is to connect with you. Connect with you right at the very micro level. to every household, to every individual. We've walked the ground, we've spoken to you at house visits, at chit-chat sessions, we've articulated your concerns to government, we share government policies to you so that we can better frame government policies that meet your needs. We will continue to do that, and we hope that you will continue to allow us to walk this journey with you, because it is always a work in progress. A home is something that all of us need to work together. And I hope you will join us in our 2 other sessions so that we can further develop some of these ideas and some of these plans. So looking forward to seeing you again. Now I hand over to DPM to share your thoughts on what more you want to say to the voters for today's session.
Well, thank you, Maliki. I must say that I am very, very encouraged by this session, and I learned a lot because you asked excellent questions. Now, as you were asking these questions, I turned to Shara and said, can we do something about this? Is it already there? And she said, yes, she will be creating it. And what I have in mind is that a lot of things that you asked and a lot of the points that my teammates have spoken about relate to 2 main things. One is about care, that you care a lot about people, about seniors, about lower wage workers, about jobs, as well as about the environment, about connectivity. So there's a whole range of issues that you care about. The second thing which came out very strongly is partnership, because together we are stronger than if we were working alone. So by bringing everyone together, we can do better. So we have a QR code in this, and Shara and I discussed and very quickly, and he said, yes, let us create a forum where we can get your inputs on what are the key things that you are concerned with, that you would like to see things being better, and that we can get everyone together to discuss this further. But beyond discussion, we hope that we can then form action groups for us to take these good ideas and put them into action.
Thank you very much,
Thank
DPM.
you.
Thank you very much, DPM. Ladies and gentlemen, our residents in East Coast, our voters in East Coast, I hope you have heard all of us, and this is just one of 3 installations of how we can connect with you, reach out to you, and how we can make East Coast a better home for all of us. I would like to thank you once again for joining us this evening, those of you who were on our webinar sessions, as well as those of you who have joined us via our Facebook Live. We saw and we know that there are some questions that are still left unanswered. We will look at those and we will find platforms where we can continue to respond to you, either via our Facebook channels or our other internet channels, or if we know you personally, we're more than happy to connect with you. So for now, we hope that you will stay safe and stay healthy. Given the current COVID situation, it is very important for us to continue to maintain our safe distance and keep ourselves safe and healthy. Thank you so much. Have a pleasant evening. We'll see you again next time round. Bye-bye.